Have you ever just sat around and pondered deep questions of life like, I wonder how many different people could be made out of the human DNA? Probably were just thinking about that this morning when you drank your coffee, right? Not really the question we're going to roll around a lot, but somebody did, and research seems to verify that the human DNA could make 70,383,744,177,644 different people. Now, math can be pretty precise, so I figure, there's probably a lot of truth to that one. And then we figure out of the 106 billion people estimated to have lived on Earth in the last 6+ thousand years, only 0.0015% that could have lived. Now, I know you're going, wait a minute, I have trouble with that number. Let me do it again. 99.9985% of the people have never, ever existed. If DNA can make 70 trillion plus people, 99.99% of them have never, ever, ever, ever seen the light of day. And it's going to take quite a long time before they all get the potential to see the light of day. Now, I have a point with this little bit of DNA trivia, and that is you are crazy unique. You are, when we say you are crazy, one of a kind, I shouldn't say crazy, that has some other connotations, doesn't it? But when I say you are unique, you are really, really, really unique. You are one of 0.0015% that ever got to live based on what could live. And now, God knows you inside out. God knows you so well, according to Matthew 10:30, He knows the very number of hairs on your head. He knows everything about you. I think this is fascinating. He knows your potential. He knows what you could do. He knows things you don't even know you could do yet. He's waiting for you to unpack it. And He knows your limitations and your fears and your worries. He knows all of it because, as David would tell us, He's the one who created us in our mother's womb. And He could have, this gets a little deep, but it's kind of neat. He could have created you superhuman. He could have created you where you could literally fly. He could have created you with such powers that you would never, ever want for anything, that nothing could scare you. You could have been like Superman on steroids and not even have to worry about kryptonite. He could have done that. And He created you just like He did, with your potential, your abilities, your weakness, and your flaws, so that we would need a relationship with somebody greater than ourselves, instead of getting all up in ourselves and being independent and so on and so forth. You are unique. You are crazy, wonderful, rarely unique. And when I say God knows you better than you know you, you know how it is. Now and then a parent will have a kid, and you're trying to teach the kid to do something, let's say ride a bicycle. And the kid, gets on the bicycle and hits the ground and goes, I can't. And if you're a good parent, you coax them back on and you get them going. And, then they come to the day where you can't get them to let the bicycle go. You just like kind of put it up. It's time to go to bed. No, I don't want to, because the parent knew what the kid could do, even though the child didn't know it. Well, that's the way God is with us. He knows what we can do, even though we sit around being scared and whining and going, we can't. He knows it. And the trick is to learn to trust Him and push forward, just like a child would about learning to ride a bicycle. I don't know if they still roller skate or not, but that was the thing when I was a kid. You're talking about busting some bones. That was interesting. So accepting yourself is part of your spiritual training. Learning you is part of it. Now, I know that sounds a little weird. This isn't your normal lesson, but you got to figure out you and your unique you. And the world probably doesn't care. You don't even worry about the world. What you want to do is imagine you're on the track, you're in your lane, you're going to stay in your lane. And if the other people like the way you run, fine. If the other people don't like the way you run, fine. Don't pay attention to the other people. Don't worry about what the world thinks. This is all between you and meeting your Creator and being the best you can be. So when God sees your uniqueness, your potential, and your talents, and they're all there, and we all have them, stay in your lane and run. Give it all you've got and be the best you know how to be, and believe in your uniqueness. That is one of the things I think that the big social media thing has discouraged people from. I like my Facebook. I like social media. I'm not against it. I don't want to sound like I'm like, oh, evil Facebook. But one of the things there is you see all of these people who just put that little short highlight of the best moment of their day from the last 6 months, and they pretend that that's how the whole 6 months has gone. You know it's a lie. But anyway, that's the way they put it up. And then we look at our regular, normal, mundane, repetitive life, and we go, oh, I could never do that. And I think the bar has been set so imaginarily high, so fake high, that a lot of people just quit believing in themselves that they do things. No, do it. Believe in your uniqueness. Grow your particular uniqueness, and we'll work on that a little bit in definition. But unpack it. Take it and say, God put this together, and He put it together for a purpose, and now I'm going to learn to work that and how to develop it and make the best I can. So we'll use Matthew 5:16. Your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So we want to get out. We want to be the best we can. We want our light to shine as bright as we can get it to shine. So the people will look at us and go, and I'm going to use a very casual phrase, but so people look at us and go, wow, God is so cool. God is so awesome. Do you see what He made? That kind of response. It's not to elevate the person, it's to elevate God. So you're going to have misery, or you're going to have victory. And I want you to have victory. And we're talking really about the path of victory, though it's a bit esoteric. A lot of people have a good shell on the outside. A lot of people, you can bump into them at McDonald's or at Walmart, and they act like they got it all together and like they're really living the good life, because that's the way we do when we're out in public. We want to look like we're doing okay. But a lot of them are really empty on the inside. They're unfulfilled, they're lonely, they're self-rejected. They look in the mirror and they really don't like what they see in the mirror. And I'm not just talking about, hey, my nose is too big or my eyes are too close together, too far apart. I'm talking about the person represented inside that image. They don't look there and appreciate it. And I was teasing. I wasn't teasing. I was really serious. But it's one of the challenges is learn to high five yourself in the mirror. If you can high five yourself in the mirror, that's a good sign. If you can't high five yourself in the mirror, that's not a good sign. And Sharon said to me later on, you're going to get handprints on my mirror. I thought, well, okay. I'll get close to high five in the mirror, but I don't have to really smack it, do I? So God's plan. God said, Jesus said, the thief comes to steal and to kill and destroy. I have came that they may have life and have it abundantly. God's plan was not for us to be empty, unfulfilled, lonely, self-rejected, sitting on Facebook or whatever social media you like, going, well, my life's no good compared to that one. Oh, my life's no good compared to that one. I'm such a loser compared to that one. That's not what God planned. And that's one of the dangers of social media, is people get caught up in that loop, thinking everybody else is excelling. And again, I'm going to say it. These people that look like they're excelling so much, they are recording and clipping the perfect 2-second clip, 15-minute clip, or whatever out of hours of material. I like the one that said, may your life really be as good as you pretend it is on Facebook. Nobody's life's that good. So we're going to be on a journey of discovery, because you have a unique blend that nobody else has, not just in your DNA, but everything about you is totally unique. There is no other you anywhere. None. So now if you could take your life and devote it to whatever you want to devote it to, then have to worry about money, what would you do? Now, if you just thought of something that was recreation and entertaining, you just told us how shallow you are spiritually. Because God did not create us to sit around and recreate and entertain one another and going, wow, he was such a great entertainer, or he was such a great consumer of recreation. I just got to give this guy eternal life. That is not God's plan. So if you could do anything you wanted to do without even having to worry about money, what would you do? And I'm talking about service now. Not sitting around having people wait on you. Matthew 23:11. but the greatest among you shall be your servant. So you take that unique you and you bring it into the vineyard to serve God. How would you serve? What would you do? You're going to take your uniqueness, because you've got it, and then you're going to align that with serving in the vineyard. And for us, you just got to look at the local vineyard. So 1 Peter 4:10 says, each one has received a special gift. I'm just going to call that your uniqueness for now. Employ it in doing what? Employing it in consuming recreation and entertainment, and just make yourself big, fat, and happy. I want you to sit on the beach and drink sweet tea and watch the sun set and rise for the next 40 years. That's your whole purpose of life. Is that what God said? Now, you know that's not what God said. God said, okay, you got some talents. Special gift, he called it there. I want you to employ it. How? In serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Now, let me ask you again, go back up to the second point. If you could devote your life to anything within the context of this lesson now, and not ever have to worry about money, how would you just love to serve your local community? And there are a lot of ways to do that. I mean, it takes, Chris said in the announcement, it takes a village to make a congregation work, and it does. And if we're going to make Pine Bluff work, it takes a village. I mean, think of everything it takes to make Pine Bluff work. I'm talking about infrastructure, services, firemen, policemen. I'm thinking about everything. Think hospital, doctors, Walmart, everything. We need all of those things. All of those are acts of service to a point, because they help our community function. If you could just pour your heart into it and not have to worry about the money, how would you serve your community? How would you employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold wisdom of God? That really unique, only you got it. So you try to understand your purpose. We got basic purpose that we all share. This is Acts 17. Actually, it starts at 26, goes through verse 28. But he says he created us and he put us on earth so that we would seek God. Okay, that's one that we all share. We're all in the business of seeking God. That's what we're supposed to do. And then I'll use Ecclesiastes 12:13 as been what all has been said. Fear the God and keep his commandments. This applies to every person. So we're all going to be obedient to God. That's what we do. That's one of the things we share. And so seeking God and serving God, serving others, they go together. It isn't just what you're doing in here right now. This is a good thing. This is the training. This is the college lecture, if you would. But you're learning, I hope, how to expand beyond that. So Christ is talking in Matthew 25:40. You really need to read the whole paragraph sometime. He said, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to, what did he say? Me. Well, we serve God. We serve God by serving one another. Now, there's a whole lot of different ways that works, and I should have probably put a whole list up about 100 different ways you can use your unique position in life and what have you, but I didn't do that, so we'll go on. So Jesus, he's our example, and he was here to serve, and he exemplifies just straight out obsession. And I think that's pretty good. I know a lot of folks would say, well, now you need to learn to live a balanced life. We'll have to talk about that in context, because Christians are to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And Christ said his food was to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. Christ was so obsessed with understanding and doing his mission here that he said it was his very food. My food is to do the will of him who sent me. And the will of him who sent him has a will for us. And that for us is that we take our special gifts and employ them in the, remember what that verse said? Service of others. That's what we do. Which is really, it gives you that purpose, that meaning which we want. So Matthew 20:28, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. Now, we're not going to be the sacrificial lamb. I get that. But if we're going to take up our cross and follow Jesus and walk in his footsteps, then we are going to learn how to serve. We're going to take everything that makes you you, and you're going to focus it on how to implement it in the service of, I would say, God, or you could say the kingdom, or the vineyard, or others, but in a way that all kind of starts to blend together. And so we're going to learn to make a difference in this world. And often it's just going to be simple acts of kindness. That's it. Sometimes it's just going to be a please and a thank you. Isn't that cool? You know, one of the things that happens in marriage a lot is the marriage starts to go stale because one or the other forgets simple niceties. Honey, while you're up, would you get me a glass of tea? Get up and get it yourself, you lazy thing. Ooh, that's real nurturing, isn't it? Right? You know, they just get the little kindnesses that make life smooth and roll along, and that's an act of service. How many of you like being told thank you, appreciated, and complimented? Anybody in here hate being told thank you, but hate hearing somebody appreciate you? Certainly hate a compliment. I mean, don't ever compliment me. I don't want to hear that. No, we all love it, right? What does it cost to do one of those three things? How much money you got to dig in out of your wallet and start pulling out some bills? Husband and wife can serve one another in some phenomenal ways just by learning simple acts of kindness, to love, nurture, and cherish one another. We're not talking about phenomenal feats. Person at the grocery store is having a rough day. You know she's having a rough day. You can see it on her face. She got a line 14 people long. We got 4 empty cash registers and nobody's at it, and she's trying to get everybody through, and you can see she's frazzled. So you go up there and you go, hurry up, woman, come on. Right? Not a good idea. You're not going to get the right change back. How about, ooh, you're having a tough day, aren't you, honey? I know it's tough being on your feet all day. I appreciate you. How long did it take? How much did it cost you? And just for a moment, you might have saw a smile, a little flicker on her face that says, I appreciate that. I needed that. Now, she's still got to work through the line of 14 people, but anyway. So you're really, really super unique. This is the part we don't really get because I think, again, the whole global community we live in now, there's 8 billion of us. So somebody said every snowflake is different. You know, so how many times have you gone out and dug up some snow, stuck it under a microscope, and started trying to check if they're all different? If you're like me, you're like, oh, great, I got to clean off the windshield now, don't I? I'm scraping away. I'm not going, every one of these is different. Wow, this is amazing. I'm just like, stupid snow. Hope I don't break my hip out here today. You know, that kind of thing. It's easy to get lost in the mass of humanity. But you are unique in your time. There was nobody else born in exactly the time and place you were. I realize some of us get pretty close together, but not exactly. The place, you know, where were you born? Geographically, I'm speaking. What connections were you born into? Because I know that your mom and daddy wasn't my mom and daddy, not in this audience anyway. But even when I talk to my siblings, sometimes I'm wondering, who were your parents? I ain't the ones I remember. And they're telling me, anyway. So you're so wonderfully unique in so many ways. And the people you can touch. And you can talk to people I will never get a chance to talk to. You can talk and sit down with people and have conversations that would not give me the time of day. And I can sit down and have conversations with people that wouldn't give you the time of day. Now, I don't mean that to sound bad in any way. I'm just saying that's how unique we are. That's how we all fit into our own little special place. And so you get into your zone, and instead of thinking globally, narrow that booger down. Who's in your closest circle? Now, if you know you're still married, then obviously you and your mate. That would be your closest circle. If you still got kids at home, obviously you got 4 in your circle, right, Brian? I mean that's right there. And then it doesn't take much to add a few people in the other ring, and that's fine. But I'm saying right there, that's your zone. The people you interact with when you're at work. Forget Facebook and the global community. You're not going to make a difference there. You're going to make your big difference in the people you actually have physical, literal real life contact with. That's where your uniqueness is really going to come out. And I like the way he puts it here. God's placed the members, each one of them in the body, just as he desired. And if they were all one member, where would be the body? But now there are many members, but one body. And so here we are. We're in this area, and I'm in a little different place than you are. And I see a few different people than you see. Oh, yeah, we overlap here at the building, quite obviously. But then there are people I know you've never ever met, and vice versa. And it's just all this wonderful, big, crazy community. I mean, crazy in a good way there. And nobody can do you like you're going to do you. And nobody can work your zone like you're going to work your zone. In fact, nobody else can work all the other zones. So let's say we have roughly 70 people here this morning. And let's say that each person represents a zone, which I think that would be fair. How many of you have the time to set your zone on hold and go work 70 other zones for them? You don't have the hours in a day. I mean, it's just not possible. It's totally impossible. But if each of us works our own little zone, now things get beautiful. So the old analogy I use, and I like it because it's simple. If I keep my grass cut and I keep my yard looking good, my yard looks good. Now, when my neighbor, Mr. Lawrence, does the same, and I will have to say he does a better job than I do, then we have two lots side by side that look good. And now when we go over next to the Hortons, and they keep their yard done good, they're getting old, they hire it out. But anyway, now we got a whole neighborhood that's starting to look good. And I forget my other neighbor's name, but she's retired. She's out there cutting the grass all the time. And now our whole little circle looks really good, but none of us did the whole circle. We all just did our own little yard. And it's a nice little cul-de-sac to live on. No one's going to do you and your zone and your place like you can do it. And I like to think this is God's design. That's how I like to do it. So watch out also about the comparison hamster wheel. I've already kind of hinted at it. Comparisons are great and they're dangerous. You just got to know how to use it. So back in May 6th of 1954, Roger Bannister did what? Everybody goes, who is Roger Bannister? He broke the 4-minute mile. He was the first one ever to officially run the mile in under 4 minutes. Everybody thought it was absolutely impossible. A human being could not do it. Now, I'm sure my count is not up to date because it was from 2023, but since that time, 1,755 people have officially ran quicker than the 4-minute mile. Now, you had a choice. You could see Roger Bannister run the 4-minute mile and be a runner and go, I think I could do that too. Or you could look at Roger Bannister, run the 4-minute mile and go, yeah, I could never do that. He's got better breath than I do. He's got longer legs than I do. He's got a quicker fast twitch muscle than I do. He's a little lighter than I am. You could have looked at Roger Bannister and you could have noticed everything that you took out of that in a derogatory, negative, I can never do that way. Or you're going to look at it and go, man, if he can do it, I bet there's a chance I can do it. Examples are awesome or they're deadly, depending on what you do with them. So be really careful when you get into comparison things, because if you're inspired, that's great. But if you're discouraged, then you didn't use it right. So I do want you to stay in your own lane. I think that's a good Bible teaching. That's not the Bible terminology. Galatians 6, 4, and 5. Each one must examine his own work. Did you catch that? His own work. And then he will have a reason for boasting in regard to himself alone, not in regard to another, for each one will bear his own load. So track analogy again. Lines are painted out. You got your lane. You're in lane number 4. What happens in the rest of the lanes doesn't matter. Run your best. Run it that when you cross the finish line, you say, I couldn't have run that any better if I tried. I'll run it better next week. But today, that's the best I had. I gave it all I had. And so we're looking at this course spiritually, not materially. And I want you to compete against you. Now, this is great in my opinion. Why should I compete against Chris Bodford? I mean, this is getting silly now already. because he's way younger than I am. Did you like the way I put that? Way younger than I am. He's had military training. He knows how to climb those towers out there at the power plant. You know, those that go way, way up and got the lights blinking on them so airplanes don't hit them. You know who changes those light bulbs? Not me. Shake his hand. He's been up there changing light bulbs. Somebody got to do it, right? And it comes from all these different experiences. Now, we could tell stories and see that we had some similarities, but for me to take this package at my age and my experience and then start competing against him, I just think that's a little weird unless we want to do, something simple like a foot race. But life, no. Not when we're talking about something as complicated as living life. Compete against you. So we pray it all the time. I think it's a good prayer. We worded a little different, but Lord, help me to be a better Christian today than I was yesterday. Amen. Compete against you. Are you really a better Christian today than you were yesterday? Now, if yesterday's too small of an increment, then go back a week, go back a month. And then can you really can you say, if you were talking to somebody that you would open up to, would you say to them, wow, this month I'm a better Christian than I was this time last month because what I have done is, and then you could tell them exactly why you consider yourself a step forward. Can you do that? See, it's one thing to go, yeah, I'm going to be a better Christian today than I was yesterday. It's a whole other thing to go, and this is how I'm going to do it. And then actually be able to say, I did it. I'm working on it. I'm in the process. I understand it. So, are you a better Christian today than you were yesterday? I hope so. Now, we're going to celebrate diversity for just a moment, but I have to clarify that one, don't I? The way we talk about diversity in our modern society is not exactly what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about diversity of what God created, our different talents, our different abilities, our places in life, our contacts. And so what I see in the Bible is he gave one man 5 talents. He gave one guy 2 talents. He gave another man 1 talent. He went on his journeys. We have different talents. We have different past, ages, experiences, occupations, contacts, families, friends. Just go on and start listing off all of that stuff that makes us different and within conformity to God's will, okay? Let me say that again because diversity is such a liberal term now. Within conformity to God's will, there is crazy, awesome diversity. There really is. Do you think everybody in heaven is going to be from southern Arkansas in the year 2024? If you're expecting heaven to reflect southern Arkansas from our time in southern Arkansas, you're in for a big awakening. Because there's 6,000 years of people who've been faithful to God from every culture you can imagine. And all of those who have been faithfully walking with God from the very beginning of time are going to be in heaven. And they didn't dress like we dress. They didn't talk like we talk. They didn't eat what we eat. They didn't drink what we do. They didn't play the games we played. They didn't have the ideas and the politics we had. It is going to be one diverse culture. And yet it's all going to be one in God. I can't explain that totally. Not even going to try. I'm going to watch the clock and get this done. So God created diversity. I'm going to use this verse. I think this is a profound example. So it says he created man in his own image, but I highlighted this part. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So now he made women and he made men, and they're both the image of God. Okay, men, don't raise your hand. But how many times have you ever looked at your woman and thought, what planet did she come from? I don't understand this creature. Or let's flip it around. Women, how often have you looked at your man and went, Lord, I don't want to do with him. You ever been there? Wait a minute. We were both created in the image of God. Why are we not identical and totally harmonious? Because being created in the image of God doesn't mean there isn't some diversity and difference. Within that image of God resides all the differences between men and women. All of it. From the emotional, the mental, that ability to multitask that women have that guys don't, that vocabulary use they have, that all it's all there. And God made that diversity. And then he said, I don't have a verse up there, he said when a man and woman join together, they become one. And yet all that diversity stays there. So you have all this wonderful diversity, and yet we're each still unique. I know it's a bit of a paradox. There's a lot of similarity, and then there's a lot of diversity. It's interesting. A lot of diversity in the early church. They broke down all kinds of barriers. Christ wanted us all to be one in Him, and nobody can take your place. If this is just an analogy, but if your seat's empty in heaven, nobody else can take it. Sorry. You're the only one that can fill your shoes. That's the way it works. And so heaven's going to be diverse, and it's going to be unified. So here we are, pilgrims. And one lesson we're going to learn on our pilgrimage is this thing about our wonderful uniqueness. And if the world doesn't care, it's all right. I know God cares, and that's really the focus I want to have. He reaches out to us, and he says, look, I know you inside out. I know you better than you know yourself. I really want to help you unpack it. He sees the potential. Our challenge is to have the faith to see the potential that lies within us. Christ said, you've already seen that, John 10:1. I came that they might have life and might have it more abundant. But he's not going to force it on us. It's a cooperative work with him. So I'm going to stop right there with that one. You know, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And when the dying time comes, one of the things I don't want is I don't want you to be able to stand up doing my eulogy and say, well, Brother Fell's gone. He tried to imitate every good preacher there ever was, but he never found his own style of preaching. He tried to imitate a lot of good husbands, but he never learned to love his wife from his own talents and his own unique position. He was an okay guy to hang around and have coffee with, but he was trying to be like everybody else. He never found who God created him to be. That's not the eulogy you want, is it? Everybody dies. Not everybody lives. Are you living the you God created you to be within His will? I better add that or somebody will think something crazy. The you He created you to be within His will. If you are, you're on a good path. If you're not, it's time to make a change. Maybe a private change, maybe a public change. You just need to make a change and get on course. If we can help you publicly, let us do so. While we stand and sing.